Welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and today's car is the Aston Martin DBX. This crucial model for Aston Martin. In its history, it's never done an SUV before, and it's been working on this car for 2015, and it's an expanding market at the moment with the Bentley Bentayga, the Lamborghini Urus selling really well. Aston really keen to capture some of that market. So I've been really looking forward to getting this car because it's not often you review a brand new from the ground up car, and that is what the DBX represents. Aston even had to build a new factory in Wales to build this car. Starts at £158,000 in the UK. As this car stands here though, £194,000 because there's a few extras on it. Let's go around it in more detail and have a closer look. It's very obviously Aston Martin with that Aston Martin grille at the front and the badge. It's actually, everything is sort of scaled up on this car. So it must be the biggest Aston ever. Well, it's certainly the tallest. It's at 5 meters long. It must be probably the longest as well. So to make everything in proportion, everything's sort of scaled up, everything you look at it. It comes on standard 22-inch wheels. There's no other wheel option on it. It has air suspension. This is in its normal ride position. I could have lowered it 50mm for an access size if that's what you want. It has presence, shall we say, this car. I think it's a very good looking car, but very definitely Aston Martin. They've been pretty serious about the off-road ability of this car as well. So they've really looked at the approach angles. So if you see at the front there's no sort of spoiler really hanging down to catch on things. It's pretty good. The suspension, being air suspension, can be jacked up another 45mm from this position. And then at the rear as well, you can see it's all tucked away. So you are going on through a lumpy section of a field or whatever, or a track. You shouldn't snag anything, that's the plan. It actually has quite a long wheelbase, and this is a good thing. When we get out on the road, you'll see what it does with the handling, but it makes the rear door a decent size. And so, well, we'll open the doors in a moment, but it just gives more interior room. It's all a bit of a surprise, this car, that it's very well thought out. I do like the sculpture, that signature sort of sculpt. You see this on a lot of Astons, this design detail. That's a proper vent into the front wheel there as well. Very active. And they say they've actually looked at where mud will stick on the car and try to minimize the mud sort of collection points, which is really quite clever. It means also at the rear, there is a little rear view camera that you can't see because it's only deployed when you select reverse. You wouldn't think Aston would go into that sort of detail, but that's the level of thought that's gone into this car. Standard brakes on this is steel brakes, 410mm discs at the front, 6-pot calipers. I think they're 390 at the rear. Quite a few, the Urus, I'm always quite impressed because it actually came with carbon discs as standard, but not so on here. I don't think they're on the option list either. They go lights are down here actually, these little circular ones, they light up, and that is actually a duct for the brake there, so you actually can put your hand through it. Just open the front. Again, typical Aston, big clamshell bonnet on this thing. Up it goes, and there on show are these aluminium castings here for the suspension towers, and this bracing, a lot of bracing going on, and the AMG 4-litre V8. This is a hot turbo as it's termed, so the two turbochargers are sitting there. You actually see it within the V. Not a place you want to be. Hand built in Wales. Lee Brake. Lee Brake is actually who sort of helped construct the car and signed it off, as I understand it. It's not the engine builder, because obviously that's coming direct from AMG. It's actually the construction of the whole car. Really quite impressive under here. Something I did note though was the wading ability. These two here are the air intakes. If I actually look at the grille, they actually, just on top of the radiator, that's where this engine breathes from. Just a note, this is more me as a farmer noting, but the wading depth of the car is rated at 500mm, which is very good, but it's not like a Range Rover sort of 600mm they do, and they can have the bow wave kissing over the top. Because on a Range Rover, the engine breathes from sort of chimneys down here. They're positioned inside the bonnet. On this, with that intake there, do a bow wave, the water is going to go into the engine. Absolutely not a criticism of the Aston. That's how everybody else apart from sort of Land Rover do it. But it's just be aware, don't sort of enter a river that's about this high and think you're going to get your DBX through. You're not. One thing on this bonnet, I cannot get over the hinges. If you look at the hinges, they're beautifully engineered, and the struts, how it's all tucked away. There's someone who does hinges at Aston who's very important, because the one on the back door is pretty special as well. Anyway, put this down. Great big mirrors. You have to scale up the mirrors on the size of the vehicle. That's why they're bigger. I like this detail. You can get this in black if you want. And roof rails. You can carry quite a lot of weight up there. I want to say 100 kilos, but it's something like that. Who would have thought you'd have a roof rack on an Aston Martin? Around the back, you have this spoiler here. Bringing air across here, no rear wiper. They say it will keep clean with the air rushing past it, and this little sort of flared up spoiler here. I thought this did something, but it doesn't. This is actually fixed here. Lights come up here, this brake light comes up here, and this is your third brake light, then joins the brake all the way across. That's how that works. When you're speccing your car, you can decide whether to have Aston Martin script there or not, and the badge, you can do them in black or chrome and some other finishes. Really nice. Inside, reasonable sized boot actually. I like the way you get these runners and you get the tabs there as standard. This is, oh, I can't do it, really quite stiff and substantial leather line, and you get a spare wheel space saver on here. That is actually an option. Other weird stuff on here where you can make it go up and down. I can make the air suspension go higher or lower depending on how you want to get someone in the back. They actually do things like dog pack for this, and they've got a rug that comes over here so you don't scratch your lovely aluminium here or your carbon here. So nice touches like that. Oh, and I can also flick the seats down as well. If I just touch that, they flick down. They get caught by the seat belt, but actually, it's quite big actually. If I just do, that's quite a big boot. There we go. And you can even get a tow bar on the back of this. It doesn't actually disappear, but it's got a 2,700 kilo towing weight on this car. They've done a lot of development with a trailer. An Aston Martin with that sort of weight capacity, it's pretty special. But then you can't have an electric tailgate and things like that. One thing I'm not quite so sure about, this has sports exhaust, and I'm really not sure about how this is all finished here in the single outlets. Something looks a little pinched or a little mean at the back. And I really don't like all this use of carbon fibre. It's one of my grumbles. I've mentioned it on other cars as well. That's £9,995 to you, sir, to have that in carbon fibre. Crazy. It's quite a big chunk of that price. The other big extra on this car is this colour. I can't remember, moss green, something, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, that's £8,000 to you, sir, to have that colour. Wheel option, that was about £1,495 to have this design. There's several designs to choose from, but there's extra on there, etc. Enough of it in the garage. Let's take it outside and take it for a drive. Just before we drive off, I want to show you a couple of things from the outside. One, this is actually a US spec car, because the Aston had set up this glorious launch in Palm Springs, California, for the launch of the DBX in April. And then the world stopped. So they're having to do the sort of launch locally here in the UK. So the cars came back, the US spec cars. But you'll just notice things like this. This lights up that's not on the UK spec car. Well, the other thing I want to show you is actually how well thought out the doors are on this car. Right, I open the front door. There's some things I really like on this. One, there's a rubber seal right down there. So this will never get muddy. Wherever you take it, that will always remain clean. And the other thing I like, flat floor. There's no big sill, so you just get in dead easy. Sounds silly, but I'm very impressed with that. Frameless door as well. And if I get in the back, if you can hear something in the background, it's a very excitable woodpecker. He's just started up as soon as the camera started to roll. Get in the back, again, the size of that door and the fact the wheel is so long, wheelbase doesn't quite fit in, I can get into here dead easy. And I'm 6 foot plus. Look at the space I've got in here. huge space. There's things you can adjust. It's not on at the moment, but that's all climate control and stuff, and heated seats that normally would light up, and you just use these little things to adjust it. The other thing I wanted to show you, there's a mad hinge. You know, I mentioned the hinge on the bonnet. Well, there's another mad hinge down here on the door. If I use all that, you see all that? What on earth's going on? I've never seen a door hinge like it. I think it's damped. All very strange. But anyway, enough of the practicalities. Let's hop in the other side. I'll place that little tune every time we get in and out, don't know why. Here we are, DBX. Now, straight away I'd say this is Aston's best interior of its regular production cars. It's ahead of DBS and 11 and Vantage. Has a more integrated feel. That separate screen has gone, that I really don't like on those cars. This more integrated look, this bridge up here bringing these higher suits the car, and this huge space underneath. Now I've got my phone on there, which is charging on a pad, and it's just a lot of storage space in the DBX is shock number one. That I've got deep door pockets, I can put bottles in there. I have a bin in there as well. I've got these sort of bottle holders. If I just slide that up, I can have the armrest covering those, or I can move them back however you want to have them. Just nicely done. Wheel, aluminium paddles there, controls on the wheel, slight moan. I think the airbag is one of those bigger airbags, these shrunken airbags you can get now. I'm surprised they haven't used a smaller wheel, but yeah, genuinely very good. And press the start button. I motor towards the steering wheel. I haven't been able to stop that. What's he getting upset about? I probably haven't got a belt on, parks on. Yeah, and it starts sort of quite an energised tick over. I've noticed this each time I've started it. It's, you know, the engine I think is warm, yeah, it's at temperature, but it just starts energised. And I've got it set in GT mode, which I do on these mode buttons here. I can choose exactly how I have it. And there's a lot of them, because you go from individual to sports plus, and then in the other direction you go to terrain and terrain plus. So new ventures for Aston Martin, but as I say, GT is how it goes. And then the familiar gearbox controls, these buttons up here. I have to say, I think this just starting to look a little old-fashioned now, these buttons up here, and I just wonder if there's a better way of doing it, but I'll leave that to the designers at Aston. But I will press D for drive and we'll move away. Really very well done, the burble. There are no buttons to control the exhaust. He quickly scans, I don't think there is, but if I choose individual, if I go down one, I've got a slightly noisier exhaust and a more energised gearbox and things. But anyway, my front drive is not the place to demonstrate all this, so I'm going to disappear off, and you'll join me on some better roads in a few moments. It doesn't take very long to realise this is a different sort of Aston. It's not only the fact I'm sitting a bit higher, but I'm sort of, it feels open, visibility's great. I've got this panoramic roof. This is standard, the glass panoramic roof. Really suits it and just adds a sort of relaxing feel to it. And the other thing is the way it rides and where it goes. You know you're in a good car when in the first few hundred meters you say, well, this is alright. It just feels comfortable. It just fits how your mood is. You just think there's no harshness, quicker steering than you expect. All the controls are nicely weighted. And you think, well, this is quite a nice place to spend time, do a few miles. And that's the feeling you get from this car within the first few moments of moving off. It's very clever air suspension. It's got the latest generation of 3 chambers. It's quite a techie thing, but air suspension is a good idea on an SUV, a sporting SUV, because it means you can vary very easily the ride height. And that's what you want on an SUV, because you don't always want to be up in the air. That was why it made early Range Rovers all wobbly, because they wanted the ground clearance to go over things. But when you took it onto tarmac, and suddenly you were top heavy and moving around. So then you put anti-roll bars on it, and then it wasn't quite so good off-road. So to be able to vary your ride height just by having air springs is why SUVs fit them. But I'm not interested in that. I'm on a favourite bit of road, and I want to try it through here. Now the first thing I've got here is a proper compression. I've put it into individual, which is just sort of speeds up. Yeah, it's so hard, this car. There was a big compression there. Car just didn't notice. But now we've got a bit more grumble coming from that V8 turning. It's got these 48 volt anti-roll system, so the motor actually acts on the anti-roll bar itself. It is extraordinary, the dynamic quality that they offer a car, and this is feeling, I'm only just getting going, very well sorted. In fact, I don't normally take it. I'm going to take it at a different bit of road where I know there's an evil set of bumps that everything grounds out of. I want to try this car over there, because I think it might do it really rather well. The only thing I've noticed on this car, it just has a slight patter sometimes, just from the wheel. It's like it's got very stiff rubber bushes or something. There's a slight chatter of something in the suspension. You have to notice it. It's not annoying, but it just is there in the background. We had a chance to take these off road and do some silly things when I picked it up. It was the launch was at Silverstone. They got a little off-road course around there. Did all right. The bit that most impressed me is when you see underneath this car the beautifully machined sort of tie rods in aluminium. It looked on the rear suspension, had a sort of look of Zonda to it. Right, there's a cyclist unfortunately up there, but this is one bump, the most evil bump. It's coming up a little later, so I discovered this bump when I was in the Zonda, and a lot of carbon fibre got shaved off as we went over it. And it's not this one, it's by just up here. It might be completely undramatic. Here we go. That's it. Well, that was exciting, wasn't it? That's a good thing. That is mighty impressive. It just squashed it, but didn't come back on the rebound. It was like it wasn't there. It's a Rolls Royce trick normally. My God, do you know what? I'm going to turn around and do that again, because that's silly. Here we go. I'm going to speed up again and see what happens in the other direction. And here it is. And there it goes. That is the most boring bit of video I could probably do, but that is incredibly impressive. The amount of actual suspension travel they've got on this car, and a bit of a genius back in the chassis department, I think, in the name of Matt Becker. Don't ever tell him that, but he's worked wonders on this car to be able to swallow a bump like that. Mega, absolutely mega. So just on the brakes, they don't, with initial press, doesn't quite inspire the confidence that you might expect. Again, referenced in the Urus again, and that had a very solid pedal and carbon brakes, and these feel slightly overwhelmed on initial press. You press through it and they're okay. I actually took the car on track and did several laps. It was quite fun really taking this round. Again, the anti-roll and the stability control really came their own. They're quite hard to disable on an Aston because you have to go through a number of screens to get there, but it was reasonably loose on Sport Plus, shall we say. But again, the brakes were the weak link. You definitely felt, I weighed the car, it's 2,200 kilos on mine, just a touch over, slightly lighter than Aston say, but then it only had half a tank. But it's the anti-roll technology we've got today is so clever. It's 48 volt system on this front and rear. It just means the wheels can move up and down when you're on a bad bit of road going straight ahead. But as soon as it senses the electric steer, you're turning into a corner, it then tightens that side, and with the linked dampers as well, it can also tighten using those as well. Right, there's a fun couple of bends here. I'm going to go down to individual. I might actually just go to manual, so press the paddle into fourth, into third. 9 speeds to choose from in this car. In we go, and it defies how it turns in there. My goodness. The Urus felt a bit big round here, and the Urus, yeah, Urus had rear steer. This hasn't got rear steer. Weirdly, I'm not missing it, and I think it's the boot. Look at that. SUVs are not fun to drive. Sorry, you haven't driven a DBX then. Summarising this car, what don't we like? Well, I think I'll kick off with the price. It very soon reaches £200,000, 158,000 starting price. Urus is a surprise at 163, I think that starts, got an extra 90 horsepower. And then you've got the Bentley V8, well that starts at about 138, I think it is. So 158, yeah, it's quite a lot of money. I'm going back to individual because it's my favourite Benz coming up. But then again, I can sort of understand how it's happened. Whoa. It's 285 at the front, 325 at the rear, but power out of there, punch. It's not crazy quick. Urus is the crazy one of the bunch, but it's plenty quick enough. But yeah, just going back to the pricing, I think it's because Aston only have the one model. Bentayga and Urus, KN and all those are all off the same module, so there's a sharing of parts there. You can see how they've saved money by doing that. The other thing I'm not so sure about, it does seem to have a bit of an appetite for fuel, as you'd sort of expect. So I have done 149 miles, and as things stand, I'm at 12.3 mpg. This is a US spec car. Therefore that's a little gallon, so I times that by 20%, but it only raises it to about 15-16 mpg. And on a cruise, it does. I don't think it's going to do quite as well as some of the others with their cylinder deactivation, even though it's on this car as well. It's got an 85 litre tank, and you'll be having lots of fun, but you will be putting quite a lot of fuel in it as well. Now I'm going to mention the brakes. The Urus has carbon discs as standard, 440mm carbon discs, and it never runs out of brakes, and it just nails its performance. It's a quicker car, and it's only a few grand more expensive than this. I think this ought to have a carbon option at least. It's what I'd spend the money on rather than £10,000 for that carbon diffuser. But when we move to the likes, well, there's lots of those. Number one, usability. It really surprised me from the moment I got into this. Here's a car, an Aston, I would so happily drive every day, and it's so well thought out. There is this brand female advisory board. I think they've really knocked it out of the park. Just storage, comfort, doors, sills, no mud, loads of things I can. The practicality is so well thought out, and it's their first go. So livability, usability, both. You know, it suits me. My wife likes it as well. Kids like. There's loads of space in the back. Fantastic. And then I have to mention the dynamics. It's not just good. It's spectacular. It's almost class leading. I'd need to get the two side by side to make sure, but it's right there. It's right at the top. The damping is stunning. It's bump absorbing, and the way the chassis breathes with the road, amazing. The anti-roll, you kid yourself that you're not in an SUV, you're in a regular Aston. Absolutely terrific. And really joyous, because it's a new car and you really didn't know what to expect. So okay, I've only had it for 2 days, but my goodness, they've been an excellent 2 days. I've been seriously impressed with this car. Didn't know what to expect. New Astons have a reputation of going either way. Top notch, this one. Joy to be in. It's one of those cars you can just see living with and being very happy. There's nothing to annoy. Fuel consumption maybe, but as a usable car. So I'm really chuffed to say this is a really nice, exceptional Aston, and it really deserves to be a success. And you know what, I think it will be. So there you go, that's the Aston Martin DBX. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, well, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.